Welcome to Dirt, Sweat, and Gears, also known as Casa de Crapola. We are back here with my 1982 Chevy S-10 pickup, and in the last video, after a complete rebuild for the second time, we got this truck running and driving and actually road tested for real. Like this truck runs now. So now that it's running, it is time to make it, well, a little less sketchy. And in the last video, we did our very first truck thing. And it was, well, it was great, but it was also really scary. The steering is what I described to be a suggestion wheel. And the suspension is just completely ruined. While shocks are really easy on this truck, ball joints, however, give me no confidence given that this truck has over 200,000 miles. So in this video, we're going to take on the suspension. I've got everything I need for the shocks and new control arms. And I also have, I think, most of what I need for the steering. And we're going to try to resolve the steering, but we're definitely going to resolve the shocks. We're going to get this thing riding right. Let me pick up the camera and we'll get right to work. As you can see, I have this on jack stands, and that's because I was studying this as much as I could. Now, when you're dealing with loaded springs, especially in one of these GMs, I'm going to show you on the Camaro because it's really exposed like this. See this big-ass heavy spring here? Yeah, that is holding a lot of energy. And you don't want to simply pop these ball joints out because that will launch your spring out like a missile and probably really hurt you. It could be fatal. Like, you really don't want to mess around when it comes with this. So, the general advice for this is don't do anything you're not comfortable doing. There's times to challenge yourself. There are times to step out of your comfort zone. This is not one of them. You don't want to mess around with loaded springs. Now, I have never done this before. So that's why I took this apart and in order to study it as closely as I can. I wanted a bolt-by-bolt order of operations figured out in my head before I even approached this. And again, I can look at the Camaro as a reference, but I wanted to directly correlate what I learned here to what I see there. And they're basically exactly the same. This truck is a mini Camaro as far as I'm concerned. Now, you may also see some other things taken apart in the engine compartment. There's some stuff that I addressed in my last video that, as of watching this, you will have already seen done. Like, I got the front face of the truck apart. That's another example. So I'm not taking it apart again. This is all just kind of recording out of sequence, and I'm editing it together. But let's go underneath here, and I'll show you where I'm at so far with it. So inside the wheel well here, I have taken out this, I guess, plastic-ish thing here. This is supposed to prevent weather from getting up into the engine compartment. And, well, it tore. So I decided to just tear it out. I'm going to have to try to replace that. But that's a problem for future me. This is the more difficult side, and I'm definitely going to do all of this off camera because I don't want to worry about having to explain myself. I don't want to have a camera rolling while I'm doing this because I have no experience doing it. So, the safest way I have been told to do this, both by YouTube University and by consulting with several master mechanics, is to get the spring compressor that you can drop in, feed in the all-thread through the top here, and that hooks into the spring coil here, and that will compress the spring against the frame. Now, you can do this with a jack underneath the lower control arm, and you release the tension that way, but that is a little more next-level experience than I have going on. The absolute safest way to do it is the way I described it, is you press the spring against the frame, and once you do that, you're safe to split the ball joints and swap out the control arms. And from there, it gets really easy. If you've done this before, it should take a half an hour, but considering this is my first time, it's probably going to take me half a day. I'm going to do it off camera over here. So I will either check in with you once I have made some progress, or I'll check in with you from the hospital. So now that I've done it once, clearly I am an expert on GM suspension. So I can tell you exactly how to do it the right way. I'm just kidding. I mean, this is how I did it, and I believe it was fairly safe. I wasn't terrified for my safety, but definitely have to be mindful of every bolt you turn, because that spring is an armed bomb ready to go off, and it will hurt you and or kill you. So you need to be very, very careful. And the other thing that my friend Chris told me, who's literally done thousands of these, he told me, you know, it's going to take as long as it takes. Don't worry about the time that it takes. Don't rush it, because if you rush, and also if you get pissed off, step away. If you get pissed off, step away, and don't rush this, because again, you need to take care to know exactly what you're doing at all times. So now that I have my process more or less sketched out on this side, we can go ahead and do the other side. And thankfully, there's some things that don't exist on the other side, like a steering shaft and interference with the Y-pipe. I had to drop the Y-pipe and remove the steering shaft. That's a problem that I'm going to have to deal with later on. One more thing that I'm going to have to do later on to this side is tighten up the nuts on the bushings. And that requires the suspension to be loaded up. I figure I want to do both sides at the same time, just so I can have an opportunity to go through every bolt and recheck everything. So let's get started on this side. Thankfully, I have a lot more space, so I can set the camera down, we can do some time lapses, and I can kind of walk you through everything that I did here. First thing I'm going to do is kind of like all of the prep work. I'm going to do as much excavation as I can here. You see, everything is buried under layers and layers of crap. I mean, it is literally an inch thick in some places, and I need to be able to find the cotter pins. I need to be able to get a socket around the castle nuts. This is probably the best example. It gets way, way worse when you get to the ball joints. I'm also going to remove the brake caliper and take off the rotor, and I'm going to set the rotor in the bed so that we don't get any of this crap into the bearings.
Owners will certainly take whatever measures are required to secure this creature for study.
Study as in dissecting, I bet.
We've removed all of the external components, and now we are ready to tackle the spring. We're getting to the really scary part. If you notice, I was chipping away lots of crap off of this steering knuckle and off of the ball joint castle nuts. And really the focus here was not to get these things ready to pop, but it was to remove the cotter pin and to just know that I'm going to get a wrench over the castle nuts. I gave it a little bit of a turn just to crack it loose a little bit, but I did not unthread anything at all yet. I'm not going to do that until I have the spring compressor in and that I can see that it has unseated from the lower control arm. So that's the next step here. We're going to feed the compressor up from the top. This is the hole that the strut goes in, the shock goes in, And is it a shock or a strut? I think they're interchangeable. I don't know. Someone correct me. We're going to feed it in from the top, and we're going to thread it into the bottom end, and we're going to fit these hooks into the coils as low as possible. And once we get some compression, we're going to also get the jack under it to just to kind of as an extra safety precaution. We're going to put the jack probably under the ball joint because we may need that cavity for the pocket to be taken up by the all thread here. But before we do that, we're going to take a break because I've been at this for a good hour now. My arms kind of hurt. So I'm going to sit down for a bit. Maybe you're also 41 years old and your body hates you. I am not young anymore. Goddamn. All right, after resting a bit, we are ready to move on to the next leg of our adventure. So after I get the spring compressor fed through the top and have the spring started, I'm not going to fully compress it yet, because once I get it started, I want to go through and crack nuts and bolts loose without fully loosening them or removing them. So there's the nut and bolt for either end of the lower control arm, and then there are 2 nuts at the upper control arm. I'm just going to crack them loose. And then once I crack them loose, I will fully compress the spring, and then we will separate the ball joints. Okay, so here's where it starts to get scary. I have backed off the castle nuts for both of the ball joints so that the top of the castle is at the end of the threads. You see we have a little bit of a gap here. So that way, when we get the pickle fork in there, we smash it open, it will separate without coming off. Down here on the spring, I have it compressed. I need to compress it just a little bit more. If you follow the coils all the way down, you can see it's a little bit tough, but you can see that the coil is still making contact with the lower control arm. And that means that we are putting pressure on that lower control arm. In this instance, since we're going to drop it down with the jack, this isn't going to be a huge problem. There's not a huge amount of force pressing down on the lower control arm. So when we release the jack, we are going to relieve that tension. But even still, it's better to just compress it as much as you think you need to in order to uninstall it and reinstall it. I really do not like compressing this thing when there is no control arm on it. So I'm going to go ahead and compress it a little bit more. And I think we are off of the control arm, so we should be clear to drop it. The next thing I'm going to do is get the pickle fork in and separate these ball joints. And I'm going to go ahead and separate both of them, even though I am only removing the lower. It's just going to make the upper a little bit easier, and it shouldn't affect anything. It didn't last time. Try not to miss. I think we are off on the upper. Now we got to do the lower. All right, we are separated. Come on. Come on out. Come on out, pickle fork. Well, that sucks. There you go. That must mean the spring is fully compressed. Oh, Jesus, come on. There you go. With our face still attached to our heads, now we can, well, we can put the lower control arm now, or we can clean up the spindle. And I'm going to clean up the spindle because my body hates me, and I am really, really sore from laying on the ground. And let's stand up for a bit, let's stretch out, and let's get this stupid thing cleaned up. And yes, I am absolutely going to time-lapse this because you really do need to appreciate exactly how much work this is. One of the interesting things I noticed here is that this steering knuckle is actually blue underneath all this crap. The other side wasn't. So that tells me this truck may have had some repairs in its past. But I have no idea because it's been 200,000 miles and the previous owner died. So let's get this thing cleaned up. I'm going to start rolling a time lapse. It's probably going to be like at 10,000x because this is a lot of work. Now that this is cleaned up, we gotta get a fresh coat of rubberized undercoating on it. And I'm gonna take it out to my professional paint booth and we're gonna spray that. In order to protect the parts that don't need paint, like the spindle and the ball joint contact areas, I put grease in them because the paint is not gonna stick to the grease. We are out here at my professional paint booth, which in this case, unfortunately, also doubles as the staging area for my miter saw. We have this thing coated, it is drying. And rather than watching paint dry in real time, which I am not above doing to the right death metal music, we're going to begin the lower control arm. And while we're on the topic, leave a comment about my music if you want to see paint dry in real time to some death metal. This is the new lower control arm. It's a little bit heavy, but thankfully we've got both a regular jack and a motorcycle jack to help us out here because it is not easy trying to strong arm this thing up underneath the truck. So, I don't know any other way to describe this other than it's gonna suck. Because it's gonna suck. Sometimes you just need to turn the camera off. And don't worry about being a performing artist here. Just worry about getting the job done safely. So you see here, what I did was I was using the motorcycle jack. I was pushing it, kicking it, hammering it with a rubber mallet, and finally got it close enough to get some of these small socket extensions through. And that's how I got it started on the other side. And it actually happened a lot faster on this side. So now that it's started, I should be able to kind of massage it from here until I can get the actual bolts in. So I'm going to clean up the actual bolts and put just a little bit of axle grease on them, and then we'll be able to finish up from here and get these lower bolts in. So now we have the lower control arm bolted on. And I didn't tighten up those bolts. You don't want to tighten those bolts until you have load on the suspension. But I got the nuts threaded on so this control arm won't come popping off once I apply spring pressure to it. I've also brought in the steering knuckle. It could use another round of paint, but whatever. I don't think it's that big of a deal. The next thing we're going to do here is probably the thing that sketches me out the most, is we have to seat this spring into the control arm as we're bringing the control arm back up. And we also want to bring it up so that it threads back into the upper ball joint, because we need to transfer the spring compression from the spring compressor to the jack. So we're going to reconnect this so that we can safely remove the spring compressor, and then start to switch things around and prepare to remove the upper control arm. All right, now we are in the ball joint. Now we just have to slip the spring in again. Now if it cooperated last time, it should cooperate this time. There we go. Oh, yeah. Oh. Oh. A little bit of luck. And also a little bit of experience. Because I did not have experience before yesterday. And it was much more difficult yesterday. So I'm going to thread this castle nut on just so that the castle is to the top of the threads. And the lower ball joint, we can go ahead and tighten down and throw the cotter pin in, because this side's done. The next thing we're going to do is put the new shock in. And I just want the shock in to give me just a little bit more peace of mind, knowing that there's a little something in case everything all goes to hell. I know the force of the spring will just rip right through the shock, but I don't know, it helps me feel better. And by the way, it's not peace of mine, it's peace of mind. I hate when people say it wrong. This is the other scary part, because now I have to decide if I am good to remove the upper control arm. It doesn't feel good right now, but let's undo the nuts inside the truck, and if we can get this thing to flop around, we'll be good to remove it. Because right now, if it's not good to remove, the only thing holding it there is this ball joint, and I don't want to separate that and have it all explode on me. But if I undo it from the other side, well, if it explodes, I'll at least have part of the truck between me and the explosion. So after I removed the two nuts from the upper control arm, a little hard to see in this light, but after I removed it, I took the pry bar in there and I moved it, and I'm getting like no resistance whatsoever here, so I think I am clear to remove the upper control arm. Okay, yeah, we're getting no... All right, yeah, the castle nut has space between the castle nut and the steering knuckle. Plenty of thread. So now I'm going to stand back and pry this thing out, because again, if it's going to explode, I don't want to be anywhere near it. But ideally, no explosion. There we go. Okay, I think we're safe to start working on this upper control arm. Well, as you're removing the upper control arm, there's a number of shims on either edge of it. That's what aligns your truck. So if you lose those shims, you're going to have to go to an alignment shop. And I'm probably going to take this thing to an alignment shop regardless, just because it's probably never had an alignment. So I'm not going to worry too much about it, but I am going to try to not lose them. So this needs to go as quickly as possible, so I am not going to worry about cleaning up the frame. One thing we do need to worry about, though, is this bump stop, because you can't install a bump stop with it in the truck. So these do not come with the Moog, all-in-one control arms. You need to go get them separately. So all you got to do is get a pair of pliers and pull up the tab here until it slips in. All right, so part of the tab tore, but I got the important part through. Bump stop is going to work just fine. One thing I also did was I cracked these nuts on either side of it so that we can get some movement in the top of the control arm as we reinstall. Take the castle nut off here. And you really don't want to dilly-dally with this because we've got an active bomb on our hands, and if that jack slips, it's all over. All right, we're on. Let's start the threads on those. We still have to put the shims in, but I want to get the control arms or the steering knuckle connected. Where the fuck are the bolts? There they are. Castle nut. All right, we got a couple of threads on. Okay, now we can breathe easy a little bit. This thing isn't going to go anywhere. Now that we have the upper control arm started and the ball joint kind of in. So this is the point where you can chill out a little bit. We can start to kind of go on cruise control. We don't have to worry about our health and well-being at this particular moment. We do need to make sure that at the end of the project, we go through every single bolt before we take this out on the road. Off camera, I reinstalled the bump stops and installed the sway bars. I actually went to the hardware store to get slightly longer bolts because I was having a really hard time getting enough thread for the nut to get started on the bolt that came with the Moog kit. I really hope that doesn't cause any problems because this is pretty long, but it shouldn't. And now that that's done, that just leaves the steering components, which I am waiting to arrive. While we wait for the steering components to arrive, let's go ahead and knock out the rear shocks as well. It should be easy, but every time I say something is going to be easy, it ends up being the biggest pain in the ass in the world. So we'll see how that goes. They're very straightforward. There's no coil springs to worry about, so I can just pop them off, pop the new ones on, and I hope I do not end up regretting saying that. Oh my god. Yeah, that's not happening. That is not happening. I might have to use the weight of the truck to fucking... Oh, wow. Okay, let's get some peanut butter blaster on there. Might have to hit it with the impact. What I really need is for this to move out. If I can get that to move out, then I'm in the clear. But since the shock is fully extended and it does compress, that's pretty easily. That means that this is the only thing holding me up from removing this stupid shock. Well, I have some fire start and I got some fire stop. Let's see what a little heat does. There was something slightly flammable down there. Okay, that's enough of that. I'm smelling burning bushing. So hopefully I just melted the bushing out. Well, it's not happy about it. Looks like the bushing sleeve is going be stuck on there, and this is going to be a problem. But can at least get the shock body off, and we can deal with the next problem. Finally, Jesus. Well, my camera battery died at a terrible time. I wanted to show you how I ended up removing this sleeve. As I think we left off, this sleeve was stuck on the stud. So I ended up heating it up a bit, and once I heated it up, I was able to get a channel lock on here and rotate it to a point where I could expose this seam. This seam, I was able to get a chisel up in here and separate it enough that it could slide off of the stud. I was going to just do that on the other side because I had the exact same problem. However, the stud broke on the other side. So we get to do even more work on this side than I had anticipated. Yay! So on this side, I have two options. I could buy an entirely new leaf spring plate with a stud in it for $75, or I could remove this leaf spring plate, which I obviously need to do if I plan to replace it. Then I could drill out the stud that's in there and just replace it with a grade 8 bolt for $4. I think we're going to try that, especially considering, like I said, we have to remove this thing one way or the other. So we may as well try to just work with what we have. I just want to check in with you and show you that while it has gotten a bit easier, I still have to earn every single thread on this nut. It's brutal, but it hasn't snapped yet. Oh. There you go. Yeah! All right, so next up, I think we got to cut off the stud from this side because I don't have a drill bit that's long enough to clear the plate. I'm done. This. You know, I think I'm doing more harm than good here. I might just spend the money and buy the plate. Our new suspension parts have finally arrived. We've got the idle arm. We've got the drag queen. We've got the outer tie rod and the inner tie rod. Just kidding. This is called drag link. To remove the existing steering setup, it should be pretty easy. I know I say that, and then I'm doing myself to misery. But we have the idler arm here with these two bolts. Drop that down, and then over here at the steering box, we have another bolt up here. And with that, all of this should come right out because it's not connected to the wheel hubs. So I think all we have to do, take out those 3 bolts, and we can take this whole thing out together in one piece, and then rebuild it on the bench and reinstall it in the reverse order. I've got the tie rod links cleaned up, and I put a spritz of paint on them. I started with the Eastwood Rust Neutralizer, Rust Encapsulator, and then I followed it up with a quick spray of rubberized undercoating. I didn't want to go too heavy on it because it wasn't on the vehicle, and now that it is on the vehicle, really I'm just going to put a spritz of rubberized undercoating on the links so that they don't corrode really bad. And then after that, we have to grease all of our Zerk fittings. I need to grease all of them. I decided to do that just all in one go so that I don't, miss one and end up having a ball joint fail or something like that. Also, I have to tighten up the castle nuts on the outer tie rods, but the rest of the steering assembly is done. And aside from greasing the Zerk fittings, we're going to be ready to go. I'm down here greasing the Zerk fittings, and I wanted to share the trick that I learned, because apparently it is not as common knowledge as I think it should be. So it's actually a really easy thing to do if you have a proper grease gun. This is just something that you'll get at like a Harbor Freight or at your local AutoZone or whatever. And it has this end on it. And this end will fit over the Zerk fitting. And then you just twist it on. So I guess you need to make sure that you have twisted this out enough that it'll grab onto it. And then once it's grabbed on, you just twist it in and it'll hang there like that. And now you just pump your grease into it. And it's kind of, I guess it's different for every ball joint or everything that you're greasing. Sometimes the grease will come spewing out the sides. Sometimes the grease will just puff up in the boot. And I think this one is just going to puff up in the boot. And you see, like, I'm pressing on it and there's there's nothing in there. So I'm just going to start pumping grease into it. And on the other side, it took about 7-8 pumps in order to fill it. We're just about done here. Yeah, and now that I can see it's puffed up and I'm feeling resistance in the lever here, I don't want to overdo it. You can correct me in the comments if I did anything wrong here, but I'm feeling the boot puffed up. I'm getting a little bit of resistance in the pump, and I don't want to pop this ball joint boot. So I'm going to go ahead and pull this off and move on to the next Zerk fitting. I got the string on the truck lined up to the back wheels to the front, and you can see here we are towed in a bit. So all I need to do is make some adjustments to this side, and then I'll go to the other side and do the same thing. And then we'll check the total tow. We'll get a tow plate between the two wheels and figure out what our next move is. I don't need to spend a whole lot of time on this. I just need to know the truck is going to make it down the street. Well, after I did my eyeball string alignment, I took it straight down to the shop in order to have a proper alignment. And we just got it back, so let's take it out on a test drive. We're going to go to a little bit faster of a road so that we can see how it actually feels, and I'll check in with you once we get there. Well, the sun is starting to go down, so we only have a few minutes to wrap this up. So I've been driving this truck for a few miles now, and the one thing I really don't like right now is the brakes. I still have not yet bled the brakes, and as a result they feel a little spongy. But now that is the worst thing in comparison to all of the other things mechanically on this truck. So that means we've come a long way, because the brakes still work. It still stops. It's just not as firm of a pedal feel as I would prefer. In terms of handling, it takes bumps like a truck. It has a much stiffer suspension, which is nice because my old shocks were just completely non-existent. They weren't doing anything. So it was really floaty before. Now it's a lot more confident. And pretty soon we're going to get an understanding of how this thing feels at speed after we take a few turns here. The steering wheel is a lot more responsive. I had a huge complaint that you would put a lot of input before you would get any output. That's still a little bit the case, and I think that's because of the steering rack joint on the steering input shaft, or the steering, is it input shaft out? It's input to the steering box. But with all of the new ball joints that we put on this thing, and the idler arm and all that stuff, it really does feel much, much tighter. And also we have a new steering pump, which gives us that power steering assist that we need. So really, in terms of steering, this is a massive improvement, and I'm really satisfied with that result. The ball joints, the control arms, that type of work was more about preventative maintenance, because I did not want to snap a ball joint having 209,000 miles on this truck. We're taking turns just fine though. I really don't want to take anything with, you know, rear wheel drive and no weight on the rear end through turns much faster than this. So in terms of handling also, this is really good. So this project was a huge success. This truck is a huge success. The past 6 months of my life has not been for nothing. I mean, if you think about it too hard, you know, is it fast? No. Is it comfortable? Absolutely not. But does it have a 6-foot steel bed attached to the back and a paint job I don't care about? Yes. So this truck is everything I need at the moment. It fulfills the use case that I was not able to fill with a Miata or with a Prelude or with a Volkswagen ID4. And we're going, I think we're going 50, 55. We have an Audi tailgating us and handling it just fine. This truck can handle speed, no problem. It's not a race car, and this dickhead is going to pass me right off, all the way off. And oh God, I could smell the burned valves that he just cooked trying to pass me. That was brutal. So this truck is everything that I was missing in my motoring experiences for the past, well, entire life. I needed a truck, and I was trying to get around that by using a Jeep and a trailer, or a Volkswagen with a trailer, but now I have a proper truck, and that is going to just enable me to do so much more effectively, and I can take that burden off of other vehicles. And I can finally take the Miata off the road, because I was using my Miata as a truck. And oh, the things that I have in store for that Miata once I take it off the road, it's really exciting. So coming up for this truck, we're not going to see very much. I may do a quick video on making it look better, cleaning it up a little bit. But other than that, you're going to see it as a work truck. You're going to see me hauling parts and tools and things with it. So it is going to be a fixture in my life for the next few years. It's going to be a fixture of this channel. But we're going to shift focus to other vehicles. Finally, you want to see me work on the Camaro? Leave a comment, because I'm going to be working on the Camaro. I also have 4 other trucks to work on, and I do intend to work on those as well. So with that, as the sun sets, if you like what you see, like, share, subscribe, and comment. And if you don't like what you see, I want to hear from you anyway. Leave a comment. Thank you so much, and thank you especially to all of the people that have helped me and supported me through this journey with this pickup truck. Too many names to name. Lots of really wonderful people have gone into putting this all together, and thank you so much. And I'll see you in the next video. It's still slow.